how would you describe Maurice's sound and the sound of the LSO? Like, why was he so good, and why were they so good?
Well, I can explain that when you heard Maurice Murphy, there was something unique about him. I mean, there are some very good trumpet players about, but Maurice had that wonderful way of producing the note ping, ping, ping. And actually, the man that followed Maurice in was a lovely man called Philip Cobb, he's a great trumpet player. And he copied him. In fact, all the trumpet section of the LSO copied Maurice, because Maurice was lead trumpet. He was like showing them. But it was not only that, every note he played, he made it alive. It didn't go pa, pa. It hadn't got a dead sound about it. It almost sounded like there was a little vibrato in it, but there wasn't. It was so clear. I've just been listening to some of the recordings he did. He did the Haydn trumpet concerto, and it's just unbelievably good. He had that unique sound. In fact, if I'm listening to any orchestra, any radio show like Classic FM, and something comes on and I haven't heard what it is, and I say to myself, "That's Maurice." Everybody can tell it's Maurice. You'll find out if any of your children want to listen to like Star Wars, because there's plenty of performances of Star Wars, but it's not always Maurice, and you can tell it's not Maurice. Yeah, so that's what I would say.
What do you think the children who are learning brass instruments, what could they learn from Maurice?
Maurice was a wonderful player, and when he was younger, he used to cry a bit because his father wouldn't let him go out playing football. He made him practice, and he thanked his father after when he got older. So, number one, you learn by Maurice was so good a player, he'd learned everything when he was younger. So, the main thing, you must definitely practice. Nothing goes. In fact, there's only one place success comes before work, and it's in the dictionary. So that works. But Maurice was such a lovely person. The nice thing about Maurice, everybody loved Maurice Murphy, all the orchestra, because Maurice had no ego at all. He didn't know how good he was at one time. And he had no ego. He was a wonderful, wonderful friend of mine. But if somebody else was playing, Maurice would say, "Wow, that's a good player." And I remember there's a very famous man called Arturo Sandoval. He was a trumpet player. And I was down in London, and I went to see them. And Sandoval was there with Maurice at the Barbican. Oh, Maurice could say, "Oh, Richard," he said, "you want to hear Arturo? This man, he's wonderful." And this Arturo Sandoval, who was a Cuban exile, actually, and he was just laughing. And he said to me, "He's saying that, and he's a better player than I am." So he loved everybody, and everybody loved him. He was such a lovely, nice guy.
And you mentioned that Maurice and Rod and yourself all lived in Shipley. Just tell us a little bit about,
Yes.
whereabouts did you live, and sort of how old were you at the time?
Well, I'd just come out of the army, so it was 1957, and we lived. It was in Birchfield Road. I'm not quite sure, but it was near Holroyd Chapel, off the main road there, and it was quite funny because when I got past my audition for Black Dyke, Maurice and I went back to his house, and he said to his mum, "Oh, Mum, Richard's got in Black Dyke." She said, "Oh, great. Where's he going to live?" And Maurice said, "Here." He hadn't asked his mother, and she said, "Well, we've only got a 2 up and 2 down room house," and so we had to sleep together, Maurice and I, but it's all right. It was great, great.
And I'm going to ask one last question from yourself this time. I mean, you've been involved in brass bands for, for your whole career. What is it about brass bands that you think is so brilliant?
I think number one, because we're amateurs, well, it doesn't sound like amateurs, but brass band, but there's a passion when we play. I remember going to a program or a concert with the Royal Liverpool Philharmonic, and at the end of it, the conductor lifted for the applause, asked them all to stand up. And I know this sounds funny, but I looked and there was a trombone at the front, and you know what he did? He looked at his watch like that, and that meant he wasn't really interested. But you never, you understand what I mean? Rather, because they're being paid, they're getting paid for doing that. We don't get paid, but the brass band people don't get paid. I mean, I started off with brass bands, and then I went through orchestras, circuses, and everything. I played everywhere in theatres and all that. But I came back to brass bands because the heart is in brass band. People want to play. That's why in this lockdown, it's so worrying because nobody's allowed to play. But it's coming better. Oh, yeah.